Morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Skyline Coffee House, casting golden stripes across the polished marble floor. The Café Saturday, on the ground level of Titanium Plaza, one of downtown Seattle's most prestigious business towers. Every morning brought the same parade of suits, briefcases, and people who moved through life like they were racing against an invisible clock. Natalie Rivers stood behind the espresso machine, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her green eyes scanning the growing line of customers. At 24, she had perfected the art of reading people. The nervous intern who always ordered the same vanilla latte, the lawyer who needed her coffee extra strong on court days, the kind, elderly man who counted his change carefully, always leaving exactly $1 in the tip jar. She understood their struggles because she lived them. Every shift at Skyline Coffee House brought her closer to her goal. Teaching certification cost money she didn't have. Her mother's medical bills consumed most of her paycheck, but Natalie refused to give up. She had promised herself that one day she would stand in front of a classroom, inspiring young minds the way her favorite teacher once inspired her. "Next guest," Natalie called out, her voice carrying warmth that made strangers feel welcome. The morning rush intensified. Coffee orders blurred together. Cappuccino with oat milk, Americano, extra shot, caramel macchiato, hold the whip. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, creating art in every cup while maintaining genuine smiles for each person. Grace, her coworker and closest friend, worked beside her at the pastry station. They had developed a rhythm over the past year, moving around each other like dancers who knew every step. Grace had been the first person to make Natalie feel welcome when she started working here. She was older, wiser, and never hesitated to speak her mind. "Table 7 needs a refill," Grace called out between boxing up croissants. "Got it," Natalie replied. Grabbing the coffee pot, she weaved through tables, refilling cups and exchanging pleasantries. These small interactions filled her heart. In a world that often felt cold and disconnected, she tried to bring a little warmth wherever she could. When everything shifted at exactly 10:15, the atmosphere in the cafe changed. Natalie felt it before she saw anything different. Conversations seemed to pause mid-sentence. Even the ambient music seemed to lower its volume. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Sebastian Cole stepped into the cafe, and Natalie understood immediately why the room had shifted. He moved with quiet confidence, the kind that came from never having to prove anything to anyone. His navy suit fit perfectly, custom-tailored to his tall frame. Dark hair touched with just enough gray at the temples to add distinction. His face carried sharp features softened by thoughtful eyes that seemed to take in everything. Other customers instinctively created space as he walked toward the counter. Natalie had seen this behavior before with important people, but something about this man felt different. He wasn't demanding attention. He simply commanded it naturally. "Good morning," Natalie greeted him with the same genuine smile she gave everyone. "What can I create for you today?" Sebastian looked up from his phone, and their eyes met. Most high-powered executives barely glanced at service staff, treating them like background furniture. But Sebastian truly looked at her, seeing her as a person rather than a function. "Coffee," he said, his voice deep and measured. "Black, largest size you have. Perfect choice." Natalie reached for a cup. "Name for the order?" "Sebastian." "Sebastian Cole," she wrote quickly, her pen moving across the cup surface. The morning rush was building again, and she needed to keep things moving. As she prepared his coffee, she could feel his gaze on her. Not uncomfortable or invasive, but curious, as if he was trying to understand something. "Here you are." She slid the cup across the counter with a bright smile. "Hope your day is amazing." Sebastian picked up the coffee, glanced at the cup, and paused. A slight smile touched his lips, transforming his entire face from intimidating to approachable. "Spelled it wrong," he said quietly. Natalie's heart sank. She looked at the cup and felt heat rush to her cheeks. Instead of Sebastian, she had written Sebastian in her hurried handwriting. Of all the customers to make a mistake with, it had to be someone who probably expected perfection in everything. "I am so sorry," she began, reaching for the cup. "Let me make you a fresh one right away." No need. His response surprised her. It's actually kind of refreshing. Refreshing to have your name spelled wrong. Natalie wasn't sure if he was being sarcastic. Refreshing to be treated like a regular person instead of someone who needs everything perfect. Sebastian's eyes held unexpected warmth. What's your name? Natalie, she replied automatically, then wondered why she felt so nervous giving such basic information. Well, Natalie, thank you for the coffee and the creative spelling. Both are appreciated more than you know. Turned to leave, then paused and looked back. What made you choose this work? The question caught her off guard. Customers never asked about her life, her choices, her story. They ordered, paid, and left. But Sebastian stood there, genuinely waiting for her answer. It's honest work while I save for teaching certification. She found herself answering truthfully. I want to teach elementary school. Help kids discover learning can be magical. Something shifted in Sebastian's expression. Respect, admiration, or perhaps recognition that beneath their different circumstances, they both understood the value of pursuing meaningful work. That's a noble calling, he said softly. The world needs more teachers who believe in magic. Then he was gone, walking toward the elevators with his misspelled coffee cup. Natalie watched him leave, feeling strangely unsettled. That brief conversation had felt more real than most interactions she had all week. The note that sparked everything, the lunch rush, came and went in its usual chaos. Natalie's feet ached, her back protested the hours of standing, but her mind kept returning to the morning encounter. Sebastian Cole had treated her with more respect in 3 minutes than most. Customers showed in 3 months. During her afternoon break, Grace pulled her aside with a mysterious smile. Someone left something for you, Grace said, handing her an envelope. Inside, Natalie found a crisp $100 bill and a note written in precise, elegant handwriting. The barista who spelled my name creatively and dreams of teaching magic to children. Your goals matter. Your work matters. You matter. Keep believing in yourself. The world is better because you're in it. So Natalie's hands trembled slightly as she read the note 3 times. $100 was nearly what she made in tips all week. But the money wasn't what made her heart race. It was the words, the acknowledgement, the way he had truly heard her when she spoke about her dreams. Girl, that's Sebastian Cole, Grace whispered, having read over her shoulder. The Sebastian Cole, founder of Nexus Innovations. His company develops artificial intelligence systems that are changing entire industries. He's worth billions. Natalie stared at the note, then looked toward the elevator bank. Somewhere in this massive tower, 30 or 40 floors above her head, Sebastian Cole was probably in some glass-walled office making decisions that affected thousands of lives, and he had taken time to acknowledge hers. What are you thinking? Grace asked carefully. I'm thinking. Natalie folded the note and tucked it carefully into her apron pocket. That maybe kindness exists in unexpected places. Or, Grace's voice carried a note of concern. Maybe rich men like collecting interesting stories about humble people who make them feel good about themselves. The words stung because they echoed Natalie's own doubts. She had watched her mother trust charming men who made beautiful promises, but delivered only heartbreak. Natalie had sworn she would never be that naive. Never mistake temporary interest for genuine care. But as she returned to work, serving coffee to people who barely saw her, she couldn't shake the memory of Sebastian's eyes. The way he had looked at her like she mattered, like her dreams were worth remembering that night. Riding the bus home through Seattle's rainy streets, Natalie pulled out the note and read it again. Her small apartment waited for her with its leaking faucet and temperamental heating. Her mother would call soon, needing to talk about doctor appointments and medication costs. Tomorrow would bring another morning shift, another parade of customers who saw her as a function rather than a person. But somewhere in this city, Sebastian Cole existed. And for reasons she couldn't quite explain, that knowledge made her feel less invisible. What Natalie didn't know was that 42 floors above Skyline Coffee House, Sebastian stood at his office window, looking down at the street below. In his hand, he held a coffee cup with his name spelled wrong. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he was thinking about someone other than himself. about a woman who served coffee with genuine warmth and dreamed of teaching children that learning could be magical, about how her smile had been the most real thing he had encountered in months. Tomorrow, he decided he would return. Not for the coffee, for another chance to feel like Sebastian instead of Sebastian Cole, billionaire, tech genius, and someone who had forgotten what it felt like to connect with another human being. Some mistakes, he thought, turning the cup in his hands, change everything. Tuesday morning arrived with a kind of crisp autumn air that made Seattle feel alive with possibility. Natalie stood in her tiny bathroom, braiding her hair while steam from the shower still clung to the mirror. The note from Sebastian sat on her nightstand, where she had placed it before falling asleep. She had told herself not to read too much into a generous tip from a wealthy man who probably left $100 bills like most people left loose change. But her heart refused to listen to logic. The bus ride to work felt longer than usual. Natalie watched the city wake up through rain-streaked windows. Office towers lighting up floor by floor as early workers arrived to start their days. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Sebastian was probably already working, making decisions that shaped industries and changed lives. She shook her head, annoyed with herself. One conversation and a kind note didn't mean anything. Rich people did charitable things all the time to make themselves feel better about their privilege. Grace was probably right to be skeptical. Skyline Coffee House was already busy when Natalie arrived at 7:30. Robert, the manager, was dealing with a malfunctioning credit card reader, while a line of impatient customers grew longer. The morning rush showed no mercy to technical difficulties. Thank goodness, Robert called out when he saw her. Grace called in sick, and this machine is possessed. Can you handle the front while I deal with this disaster? Absolutely. Natalie tied her apron and stepped behind the counter, diving into the familiar rhythm of taking orders, making drinks, and creating small moments of connection in the chaos. Mrs. Patterson from the law firm ordered her usual chai tea with almond milk. How's your mother doing, sweetheart? She asked, genuinely concerned. Natalie had mentioned her mom's health struggles during a quiet afternoon weeks ago. She has good days and hard days, Natalie replied while steaming milk. Yesterday was a good one, though. She actually felt well enough to do some gardening.
Well.
You tell her I'm keeping her in my prayers, Mrs. Patterson said warmly. Leaving a $5 tip, these moments reminded Natalie why she loved this work despite the challenges. In a world that often felt disconnected, she built tiny bridges between people's lives, one coffee at a time. At exactly 10:15, the elevator doors opened. Sebastian Cole stepped into the cafe, and Natalie's heart performed an embarrassing acrobatic routine. Today, he wore a charcoal suit with a burgundy tie, looking every bit the powerful executive except for something different in his eyes. He looked almost nervous. He approached the counter with that same measured confidence, but this time he smiled when their eyes met. A real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face from intimidating to approachable. Good morning, Natalie, he said, and hearing her name in his deep voice made her pulse quicken. Good morning. Sebastian, she replied, deliberately emphasizing the correct spelling of his name. Back for more creatively spelled coffee? His smile widened. Actually, I'm hoping for accurate spelling today. I have a reputation to maintain. I'll do my absolute best. Natalie reached for a cup. Same order as yesterday? Large coffee. Black. Though I'm open to suggestions if you have a favorite. The fact that he asked for her opinion, treating her as someone whose thoughts mattered rather than just someone who took his order, sent warmth through her chest. Honestly, if you like it black. Stick with that, Natalie said, while preparing his drink. But if you ever want to try something different, our cold brew is incredible. We steep it for 18 hours. 18 hours? Sebastian leaned against the counter, making no move to check his phone or rush the interaction. That's more patience than most business deals require. Good things take time, Natalie replied, carefully writing his name on the cup with deliberate precision. She showed it to him before starting the coffee. Spelling approved? Sebastian studied the cup with exaggerated seriousness. Absolutely perfect. You're clearly a woman of many talents, coffee preparation and basic spelling. I'm basically a Renaissance woman, Natalie deadpanned, and was rewarded with genuine laughter as she finished his drink. She noticed other customers watching their interaction with curiosity. Some looked annoyed that Sebastian was taking up her time. Others seemed fascinated by the sight of one of Seattle's most powerful men engaging in casual conversation with a barista. Here you go. She slid the coffee across the counter. Perfectly spelled and guaranteed to fuel whatever world-changing decisions you're making today. Sebastian picked up the cup, but made no move to leave. What if I'm not making world-changing decisions? What if I'm just trying to get through Tuesday? The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the billionaire tech genius. This was just a man admitting that some days felt harder than others. And I hope the coffee helps make Tuesday a little better, Natalie said softly, their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. A connection forming that had nothing to do with customer service and everything to do with two people seeing each other clearly. Breaking the pattern for the next week? Sebastian appeared every morning at exactly 10:15. Their conversations grew longer, deeper, more personal. He stopped checking his phone while talking to her. She stopped worrying about what other customers thought of their extended exchanges. On Wednesday, she explained the certification program she wanted to attend, how it would let her work with elementary students who were still young enough to believe learning could be an adventure. My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Chen, changed my life, Natalie said, while wiping down the counter during a rare, quiet moment. Sebastian had started timing his visits to avoid the rush, giving them space to talk. My dad had just left, and my mom was working 3 jobs. I was angry and scared and failing at everything. Mrs. Chen saw past all that. She made me believe I was capable of something more. And now, you want to be that person for other kids? Sebastian said, his voice carrying deep respect. Exactly. Every child deserves at least one adult who believes in them completely. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. I wish I'd had a teacher like that. My education was excellent by every measurable standard, but it was cold, efficient. Nobody cared about the actual child behind the test scores. The admission revealed a loneliness that Natalie recognized. Different circumstances, same fundamental need for genuine connection. On Thursday, Sebastian arrived looking exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usual precise appearance seemed slightly disheveled. Rough night? Natalie asked gently while preparing his coffee. Board meeting that went until 2 in the morning. Lots of people arguing about quarterly projections and market share, while completely missing the point of why we started this company in the first place. Which was what? Sebastian looked at her with something like gratitude. To create technology that actually helps people instead of just extracting profit from them. But somewhere between the startup phase and going public. That vision got buried under shareholder expectations and growth targets. That sounds incredibly frustrating, Natalie said, sliding his coffee across the counter. Some days I wonder what I'm building and whether it matters at all. He paused, then added quietly, talking to you is the most real part of my day. The confession hung between them, heavy with meaning. Natalie felt Grace watching from the pastry station, her earlier warnings echoing in her mind. But when she looked at Sebastian, she didn't see manipulation or games. She saw genuine vulnerability from someone who had forgotten what authentic connection felt like. I'm glad I can be that for you, Natalie said honestly. Even if it's just coffee and conversation. It's not just anything, Sebastian replied. It's everything. The moment everything changed, Friday evening, Natalie was closing up the cafe alone. Robert had left early for a family emergency, trusting her with the end-of-day procedures. She was wiping down tables, humming along to the quiet jazz playing through the speakers. When she heard a knock on the locked door, Sebastian stood outside. No longer in his business suit, but wearing jeans and a simple sweater that made him look approachable and human. He held up to takeout bags and offered a tentative smile. I know this is completely inappropriate, he called through the glass. But I was hoping you might let me help you close up. I brought dinner as payment for your time. Every logical part of Natalie's brain screamed caution. This was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. Customer and service worker. Billionaire and barista. Different worlds that weren't meant to collide. But her heart. That foolish organ that refused to listen to reason made her walk to the door and unlock it. "You want to help me clean a cafe?" she asked, opening the door just enough to talk. "I want to spend time with you outside of me being a customer and you being obligated to be nice to me," Sebastian said honestly. "I want to know if these conversations we've been having are real, or if I'm just a lonely guy reading too much into professional courtesy." The raw honesty in his voice made Natalie's decision. She opened the door fully. "Come in. But if you're helping, you're actually helping. No standing around looking decorative while I do all the work." Sebastian's face lit up with genuine joy. "Deal. Where do we start?" For the next hour, they worked side by side. Sebastian, who probably had people to handle every menial task in his life, scrubbed tables and swept floors without complaint. They ate Thai food sitting on the counter, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up with parents who measured his worth by achievement scores, how he had built his company from a college dorm room, believing he could create something meaningful, how success had brought wealth and influence but also isolation and doubt about who genuinely cared about him versus his net worth. Natalie shared stories about her mother's strength through illness, the way medical debt had crushed their family but never broken their spirit. She talked about her father leaving, about learning to trust people again, about the fear that she would never escape the cycle of financial struggle no matter how hard she worked. "I make $12 an hour," she said quietly, stacking chairs. "After taxes and rent and my mom's prescriptions, I save about $300 a month if nothing goes wrong, which means I'm looking at 4 years before I can afford the teaching program. And that's if nothing goes wrong, which something always does." Sebastian stopped sweeping and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Anger, sadness, and something fiercer. "That's not fair," he said simply. "Life rarely is," Natalie replied with a sad smile. "But I'm not giving up. I'll get there eventually. You shouldn't have to wait for years for something you're ready for right now. Well, unless you're planning to revolutionize education funding in the next few weeks, I don't see an alternative." Sebastian opened his mouth as if to say something, then stopped himself. A struggle played across his features, some internal debate about boundaries and appropriateness. "What?" Natalie prompted. "Nothing. I'm just thinking." They finished cleaning in comfortable silence, but the air between them felt charged with unspoken possibilities. When everything was done, they stood by the door, neither quite ready to leave. "Thank you for letting me help," Sebastian said softly. "This was the best evening I've had in longer than I can remember. Even though you spent it scrubbing coffee stains and sweeping up crushed biscotti, especially because of that. Do you know how long it's been since someone let me just be useful? Just be a regular person doing regular things?" Natalie studied his face in the dim cafe lighting. "You're not a regular person, though. You're Sebastian Cole. You've built something incredible. You've changed entire industries. Right now, standing here with you, I'm just Sebastian. And that's the version of myself I like best." The confession made Natalie's breath catch. This wasn't just friendly conversation anymore. Something real was forming between them, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "I should go," she whispered, but made no move toward the door. Natalie Sebastian said her name like a question and a prayer. "I know this is complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this doesn't make sense. But I need you to know that these conversations, these moments with you, they matter to me. You matter to me, Sebastian. We barely know each other. I know you dream of teaching because you want to be for other children what Mrs. Chen was for you. I know you hum when you're concentrating and that you remember every regular customer's order and ask about their lives. I know you send most of your paycheck to help your mother, and you've never once complained about how hard that must be. I know that talking to you makes me remember why I wanted to build something meaningful in the first place." Tears pricked Natalie's eyes. "This scares me. You scare me. Not because you're cruel, but because you're kind. And I don't know if this is real or if you're just lonely and I'm convenient." "It's real," Sebastian said with absolute certainty. "I don't know what it is yet, but it's real." They stood in the quiet cafe, Seattle's evening traffic humming outside. Two people from impossibly different worlds acknowledging that something was forming between them. something fragile and new and terrifying in the best possible way. "I have to protect myself," Natalie said finally. "I've watched my mother trust charming men who made beautiful promises." "I swore I'd be smarter. I'm not making promises I can't keep," Sebastian replied. "I'm only asking for a chance to figure out what this could be. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty." Natalie took a deep breath, making a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if she could fly. "Okay, but we take this slow. And if at any point I feel like I'm just an interesting distraction, I'm walking away." "Fair enough." Sebastian's smile was pure relief and joy. "Can I start by taking you to dinner tomorrow? Somewhere where I'm not your customer and you're not working, like a date?" Natalie's heart raced. Exactly like a date. If you're comfortable with that, Grace's warnings echoed in her mind. The vast difference in their circumstances loomed large. Every logical reason to say no lined up like soldiers. But Natalie looked at Sebastian's hopeful face and remembered how he had scrubbed tables without complaint, how he truly listened when she talked, how he saw her as a whole person rather than just someone who served his coffee. "Okay," she whispered. "One date." Sebastian's face transformed with joy so pure that Natalie's remaining doubts quieted just slightly as she locked up the cafe and walked to her bus stop. Natalie's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Sleep well, Natalie." "Tomorrow can't come fast enough, Sebastian." She saved his number, her heart full of hope and terror in equal measure. What she didn't know was that in his downtown penthouse, Sebastian stood. At his window, looking out at the city lights, feeling more alive than he had in years. Diana, his business partner, would tell him he was being reckless. His board would question his judgment. The media would have a field day if they found out. But for the first time since building his empire, Sebastian didn't care about any of that. He only cared about a woman who served coffee with kindness and dreamed of teaching children that learning could be magical. A woman who saw him as just Sebastian, not as a net worth or a business opportunity. Some connections, he thought, were worth every risk. Saturday morning found Natalie standing in front of her closet, staring at her limited wardrobe with growing panic. Where exactly did a billionaire take someone on a first date? Some exclusive restaurant where the waiter spoke French and the menu had no prices. A charity gala where everyone wore designer labels she couldn't pronounce? Her phone buzzed with a text from Sebastian. "Or something comfortable? Jeans are perfect. Trust me." The simple message calmed her racing heart. She chose her nicest pair of jeans, a soft cream sweater, and the brown leather jacket she had saved 3 months to buy. Natural makeup, hair down in loose waves. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself, trying to be someone else. Just Natalie. Sebastian arrived at her apartment building at exactly 6 o'clock, driving a modest sedan instead of the luxury car she had expected. He wore jeans and a navy Henley that made his eyes look impossibly warm. When he saw her, his entire face lit up with genuine appreciation. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "You look surprisingly normal," Natalie replied, then immediately felt mortified. "I mean, not that you don't usually look good, I just meant, you're not wearing a suit?" And Sebastian laughed, cutting off her rambling. "I know what you meant. I wanted tonight to be about us, not about all the other stuff. Is that okay?" "More than okay," Natalie admitted. Feeling her nervousness ease slightly, they drove through Seattle as evening painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Instead of heading to the downtown restaurant district, Sebastian took them to a small neighborhood in the North End. Pike Place Market was closing for the evening, vendors packing up their stalls, the usual crowds thinning to a comfortable handful of people. "I thought we could walk through the market," Sebastian explained, finding parking along a quiet street, then grab food from that amazing taco truck everyone raves about. "If that sounds good to you?" Natalie felt something loosen in her chest. No pretense, no trying to impress her with expensive restaurants or exclusive venues, just a simple evening exploring the city together. "That sounds perfect," she said honestly. They wandered through Pike Place Market as vendors closed up shop. Sebastian bought her flowers from an elderly woman selling the last of her bouquets, tulips in soft shades of pink and cream. They watched the fish throwers at Pike Place Fish Market wrap up for the day, laughing at the behind-the-scenes banter between workers. "I used to come here with my grandmother," Sebastian said quietly as they walked along the waterfront. "Before the company, before all the success and expectations, she'd bring me here on Saturdays, and we'd spend hours just wandering," she taught me that the best conversations happen when you're walking side by side, not sitting across from each other at some formal dinner table. "She sounds wonderful," Natalie said softly. "She was the only person in my family who cared about who I was rather than what I achieved. When she died 5 years ago, I lost the only person who saw me clearly." Sebastian paused, looking out at Elliott Bay as boats dotted the darkening water. "Until I met you." The confession made Natalie's breath catch. "Sebastian, we've only known each other a week, I know. But sometimes a week of genuine connection matters more than years of surface interactions. I've had relationships that lasted months where I never felt as seen as I do in our conversations." They found the taco truck and ordered way too much food. Sitting on a bench overlooking the water while they ate, the conversation flowed easily, moving from childhood memories to favorite books to dreams they had almost given up on. "I wanted to be a musician," Sebastian admitted, wiping salsa from his chin. "Piano, specifically. I was actually pretty good, but my parents made it clear that music was a hobby, not a career. Technology was practical. Music was frivolous." "Do you still play?" Natalie asked. "Not in years. I don't even have a piano anymore." The sadness in his voice was palpable. "That's tragic," Natalie said firmly. "You should buy a piano. Play again. Life's too short to abandon things that make your soul happy." Sebastian looked at her with such intensity that Natalie felt exposed. "You really believe that, don't you?" "That joy matters as much as success. Joy matters more than success. What's the point of achieving everything if you're miserable doing it?" "Most people would call that naive," Sebastian said quietly. "Most people are wrong," Natalie replied. "Look, I'm not successful by anyone's standards. I make barely enough to survive, and my biggest achievement is keeping myself and my mom afloat. But I laugh every day. I find joy in small things. I have hope that tomorrow might be better." "That's not naive. That's choosing to live fully even when circumstances are hard." Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. "You're the wisest person I've met in years. I'm just really good at justifying why I'm broke," Natalie joked. But Sebastian didn't laugh. "No, you understand something most people spend their whole lives missing. You know what actually matters when crisis tests truth?" The evening ended with Sebastian walking Natalie to her apartment door. They stood in the dimly lit hallway, neither quite ready for the night to end. "Thank you for tonight," Natalie said softly. "For making it easy and comfortable instead of overwhelming." "Thank you for giving me a chance," Sebastian replied. "Can I see you again? Maybe tomorrow?" "I know it's fast, but yes," Natalie interrupted, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Sebastian's smile could have powered the entire city. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. The tenderness of the gesture made Natalie's eyes sting with unexpected tears. "Good night." "Natalie," he whispered. "Good night, Sebastian." She watched him walk down the hallway, waiting until he disappeared into the elevator before letting herself into her apartment. The space felt smaller than usual, shabbier, but it was hers, earned through her own hard work. She refused to feel ashamed of that. Her phone rang at 2 a.m. Natalie woke groggily, seeing her mother's name on the screen and feeling immediate panic. "Calls this late never brought good news, Mom." "What's wrong?" Her mother's voice was weak, strained with pain. "Honey, I'm sorry to wake you. I fell, getting out of bed. I think I need to go to the hospital." 20 minutes later, Natalie was in an emergency room, her mother admitted for observation. The doctor explained that her mother's medication had been causing dizziness, leading to the fall. They needed to adjust prescriptions and run tests to ensure nothing was broken. "How much will this cost?" Natalie asked quietly, already doing calculations in her head. "Without insurance. We're looking at several $1,000s minimum," the doctor said with practiced sympathy. Natalie's carefully saved money, her teaching certification fund, wouldn't even cover half. She sat in the uncomfortable waiting room chair, watching dawn light creep through the windows, and felt her dreams crumbling once again. Her phone buzzed. Sebastian, checking in after their perfect date. Good morning. I can't stop thinking about last night. Hoping today is as beautiful as you are? Natalie stared at the message, then at her mother sleeping fitfully in the hospital bed visible through the door. Two worlds colliding in the worst possible way. She could tell Sebastian what happened, but then what? Would he offer money? Would she accept? Would their relationship become about him rescuing her instead of two people genuinely connecting? She turned off her phone without responding. The truth about intentions Sunday passed in a blur of hospital procedures and insurance forms and mounting bills. Natalie called in sick to her Monday morning shift, the first time she had missed work in over a year. By Monday afternoon, her mother was stable, but needed to stay another night for observation. Natalie sat in the hospital cafeteria, forcing down stale coffee and trying not to calculate exactly how many months of savings had just evaporated. Her phone had 17 missed calls from Sebastian and at least 30 texts. Progressing from concerned to worried to borderline panicked, she finally responded with a simple message. Family emergency. I'm okay. Need space. 3 minutes later, Sebastian called. This time, she answered, Natalie, thank God. I've been losing my mind. What happened? Are you hurt? The genuine fear in his voice broke something in her careful composure. I'm fine. My mom had a fall. She's in the hospital. Which hospital? I'm coming right now, Natalie said quickly. Sebastian, I need to handle this myself. Silence stretched between them. When Sebastian spoke again, his voice was careful, controlled. Did I do something wrong? Did I push too hard? No, you've been perfect. That's actually the problem. I don't understand. Natalie took a shaky breath. My mom's hospital bills just wiped out my teaching fund. I'm back to square one. Maybe square -1. And I'm sitting here wondering if I tell you this, if you'll try to help. If you'll offer money, and then our whole relationship becomes about you saving poor Natalie instead of two people who genuinely connect. You think I would hold helping you over your head? Sebastian sounded hurt. I don't know what you'd do. We barely know each other. And I can't risk finding out that this was all just you playing savior to someone you felt sorry for. Natalie, that's not. I have to go, she interrupted. My mom needs me. She hung up before he could respond, then turned off her phone completely. The tears came then, quiet and exhausting. She was tired of being strong, tired of 1 step forward and 3 steps back, tired of watching her dreams slip away no matter how hard she fought for them. The gesture that changed everything Tuesday morning. Natalie returned to work with dark circles under her eyes and a heavy heart. Her mother was home, recovering, but needing expensive follow-up care. The teaching certification program seemed impossibly distant now. Grace took one look at her and pulled her into a fierce hug. Robert told me about your mom. How bad is it? Pretty bad, Natalie admitted. But we'll figure it out. We always do. That Sebastian guy has been calling the cafe looking for you, Grace said carefully. Robert's been telling him you're not working today. He sounded really worried. He'll get over it, Natalie said, tying her apron with mechanical efficiency. Rich guys always do. But Grace's expression was troubled. Natalie, I know I warned you about him. But the way he sounded on the phone, that wasn't a man playing games. That was someone genuinely scared about losing you. Natalie didn't respond. She couldn't let herself hope that Sebastian's feelings were real. Hope was too dangerous when survival took all her energy. The morning passed slowly. Every time the elevator opened, Natalie's heart jumped, expecting to see Sebastian. But he didn't come. Not at 10:15, not at all. Part of her felt relieved. Most of her felt inexplicably heartbroken. At noon, Robert called her into his small office. His expression was unreadable. Natalie, we need to talk about something unusual that happened this morning. Her stomach dropped. If this is about missing shifts, I'm so sorry. My mom, it's not that, Robert interrupted. Someone came by before we opened. Left this for you. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter written in Sebastian's precise handwriting and a check that made Natalie's hands shake. The check was made out for $15,000, the exact amount she needed for teaching certification. Before you panic and think this is me trying to buy you or control you, the letter began, "Please read this entire explanation. I'm not giving you this money. I'm investing it. Here's my proposal. Take the teaching certification program. Become the incredible teacher I know you'll be. Then, once you're working and stable, pay me back. No interest, no timeline, no strings attached. If it takes 5 years or 20 years, I don't care. This isn't charity. It's an investment in someone I believe in completely. You said your teacher, Mrs. Chen, changed your life because she believed in you. Let me be the person who believes in you now. Not because I have money and you don't. Because you deserve the chance to follow your dreams without waiting for more years while life throws obstacles in your path. I'm not trying to save you, Natalie. You don't need saving. You're already the strongest person I know. I'm just trying to remove one barrier so you can reach your potential faster. Use the money or don't. See me again or don't. Either way, this check is yours with no expectations. But please know this. Our connection is real. What I feel for you has nothing to do with money or circumstances. It has everything to do with who you are as a person. You make me want to be better. You make me remember why any of my success matters. You make me feel like Sebastian instead of Sebastian Cole. That's priceless. If you want space, I'll give you space. But please don't think for 1 second that I see you as a charity case. You're the most remarkable person I've met, and I'm honored that you gave me a chance to know you. With all my respect and genuine affection, Sebastian. Natalie read the letter 3 times while tears streamed down her face. Robert awkwardly offered her tissues. That's quite a gesture, he said quietly. I don't know what to do, Natalie whispered. Do you think his intentions are genuine? Natalie thought about Sebastian scrubbing cafe tables without complaint. About him sharing his pain over abandoned dreams. About the way he had kissed her forehead with such tenderness. About his panic when she disappeared. Yes, she admitted. I think they are. Then maybe the question isn't whether to accept his help. Maybe the question is whether you're brave enough to let someone care about you, love. That transforms. Both Natalie found Sebastian in his office on the 42nd floor of Titanium Plaza. His assistant tried to stop her, but Natalie walked past with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. Sebastian was on a conference call, but when he saw her standing in his doorway, he immediately ended the conversation. I have to go. We'll continue this later. They stared at each other across his massive office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle. He looked exhausted, worried, vulnerable in ways that no billionaire should look. I can't accept the money, Natalie said quietly. Sebastian's face fell, but he nodded. I understand. I overstepped. Let me finish, she interrupted. I can't accept it as a gift, but I will accept it as a loan, exactly as you described. With 2 conditions. Anything, Sebastian said immediately. First, we draw up an actual contract. Make it official. I pay you back over time once I'm working. I need this to be real, not just a gesture you forget about. Done. What's the second condition? Natalie took a deep breath. That you buy a piano? That you start playing again? That you stop abandoning the things that make you happy just because someone told you they weren't practical? Sebastian crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just inches from her. Why? Because you're investing in my dreams. The least I can do is invest in yours. Natalie looked up at him, seeing past the expensive suit to the man underneath. And because I care about you. Really care about you? Which terrifies me. It terrifies me too, Sebastian admitted. I've never felt this vulnerable with anyone. But it's the best kind of scary. So where do we go from here? Natalie asked. Forward, Sebastian said simply. Together, taking it one day at a time. Being honest about our fears, building something real. No more running away when things get hard? Natalie asked. No more running away, Sebastian agreed. We face problems together. He reached for her hand, and Natalie let him take it. Their fingers intertwined, two people from different worlds choosing to bridge the distance between them. I start the teaching program in January, Natalie said. It's going to be intense. Long hours, lots of studying. I won't have much free time, and I'll cherish whatever time you can give me, Sebastian replied. And maybe I'll come study with you sometimes. I hear coffee shops are great for that. Natalie laughed through her tears. You're ridiculous. I'm happy, Sebastian corrected. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. 6 months later, Natalie stood in front of her first classroom. 23 eager second graders looking up at her with wide eyes. Her teaching certification had been intense, but amazing. She had graduated top of her class and been hired immediately by the same elementary school she had attended as a child. Mrs. Chin, now retired, had attended her graduation ceremony. I always knew you'd be here someday, she had said, hugging Natalie tight. You're going to change lives, just like you dreamed. On her desk sat a small framed photo. Sebastian at his new piano, playing with his eyes closed and a peaceful smile on his face. He had bought the instrument 2 weeks after their conversation in his office and had started taking lessons again. Last month, he had played for her for the first time. A beautiful piece by Chopin that had made her cry. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully. They had fought about money and boundaries and what it meant to be partners from such different circumstances. Natalie had insisted on paying her own way whenever possible, refusing to let Sebastian's wealth define their dynamic. Sebastian had learned to respect her independence while still showing. He cared through thoughtful gestures that had nothing to do with his bank account. Diana, Sebastian's business partner, had been skeptical at first, but after meeting Natalie at a company dinner, she had pulled Sebastian aside. She's good for you. You laugh more. You're more present. Don't screw this up. Natalie's phone buzzed with a text. Sebastian, who had been in meetings all morning, how's the first day with your class? Remember, you're amazing at this. Those kids are lucky to have you. Dinner tonight to celebrate? I'm cooking. Yes, actual cooking, not ordering takeout. Be afraid. Natalie smiled, typing back quickly. Terrified. Can't wait. Love you. The response came immediately. Love you more. Proud of you always. She looked at her classroom, at the faces of children who deserved to believe learning could be magical, at the dream she had worked for and finally achieved, at the life she had built through her own determination, with support from someone who believed in her potential. That evening, Sebastian's penthouse smelled like something burning. Natalie arrived to find him frantically waving smoke away from a fire alarm, while a charred attempt at chicken sat abandoned in the sink. So dinner didn't go as planned, he admitted sheepishly. Natalie laughed, walking into his arms. Good thing I stopped for pizza. They ate on his balcony overlooking Seattle, watching the city lights twinkle to life. Sebastian told her about his day, about a new project using artificial intelligence to improve education access in underserved communities. Natalie shared stories about her students, about the little girl who reminded her of herself at that age. Scared and angry, but desperately wanting to believe things could be better. I've been thinking, Sebastian said carefully. About us, about our future. Natalie's heart jumped. Okay, I know it's only been 6 months. I know we're still figuring this out, but I need you to know that this isn't temporary for me. You're not a phase or an adventure. You're the person I want to build a life with. Sebastian, I'm not proposing, he interrupted quickly. Not yet. We're not ready for that. But I'm telling you my intentions. I'm all in, Natalie. Completely committed to figuring out how to make this work. Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. I'm all in too. Even though it's scary and complicated, and we're from completely different worlds, maybe we're not from different worlds, Sebastian said softly. Maybe we were always meant to find each other. You needed someone who believed in your dreams. I needed someone who saw past the success to the person underneath. We needed each other. Spelling mistake on a coffee cup. Natalie marveled. That's what started all this. Best mistake I ever experienced. Sebastian pulled her close. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who had found each other against all odds. Natalie Rivers, the teacher who believed every child deserved an adult who believed in them. Sebastian Cole, the billionaire who had remembered what actually mattered in life. Their story wasn't about money saving the day. It was about two people choosing to see each other clearly, to bridge the distance between their circumstances, to build something real through honesty and mutual respect. Some love stories are about grand gestures and dramatic moments, but the best ones are about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. About believing in each other's dreams. About creating a partnership built on equality rather than rescue. As stars appeared in the Seattle sky, Natalie Rivers knew with absolute certainty that her life had changed forever. Not because a billionaire had solved her problems, but because she had been brave enough to let someone see her fully, to accept support without losing herself, to believe that love could exist across different worlds and somewhere in the universe. Mrs. Chen smiled, knowing that her former student had indeed become someone who changed lives, starting with her own. The end.